welcome to the Dr. Dank's podcast. I'm Larry Nagel, your host, the notorious Dr. Dank. We've talked about numerous things in past episodes. This is, I believe, episode 8, Chris. We have spent a fair amount of time on the Schedule 1 controlled substance issue and the DUI issue as far as medical card holders in Pennsylvania. Probably more than we would have liked to. But there still seems to be quite a bit of confusion. And amidst all the confusion, we may have found some true relief. Number one, let me fill you in a little further about developments with my encounters with the law in this. Now, to start with, I want to make it clear, out of a total of 5 different times I've been stopped, that I've produced my medical marijuana card. 4 of those times I have done field sobriety tests. 4 of those times I have passed those field sobriety tests and been left go. The one that I wasn't left go on was the one at the top of Pleasant Gap Mountain, or Center Hall Mountain, however you look at it. I believe they call it Mount Nittany. There, after 2 field sobriety tests, and displaying that evidently I was not impaired whatsoever, the officer found it necessary to take me for a blood draw. Now, it appears that even though there's a great deal of ignorance and misunderstanding amongst the troopers as far as enforcement on the medical marijuana side, one thing they all seem to know is that if you draw blood on anyone that's dosed within 30 to 60 days with medical cannabis, they're going to test positive. Now, think about an analogy between this and alcohol. If you get arrested or stopped for being impaired or showing signs of impairment, or just get stopped at a roadblock, and you smell like alcohol, they're going to administer a field sobriety test. Now, if you pass that field sobriety test, you're good to go. There's no recourse. There's no paperwork. You passed. You're good. You're sober. At least sober enough in the officer's determination to drive. Now, what if the same scenario, after you passed your field sobriety test, showed that you weren't impaired, the officer took you and had your blood drawn, and all they had to show was trace elements of alcohol in your blood to sustain a conviction under the Schedule 1 Controlled Substance Act. Now, this has been the case going clean back into the early 70s. My producer and co-host at this point is going to explain some of the aspects of a new law that was signed into law February of 2024 that will give some relief to those of us that are being whipped with the current legal structure. I've spoken enough, and I'm not going to review it. I mean, if you want to see in past episodes what happened with me, I had a traffic stop. The officer I was open about having a medical card. I was open about everything, 100% truthful, thought that was the best policy. He just couldn't let that be good enough. And I mean, we'll probably get into more about this particular officer because, the court transcripts, the videos, everything shows this man perjured himself under oath on the stand. He falsified his police report on this incident. Not the type of trooper that I want protecting my grandkids, and I have 10 of them. See, this is serious business with me. This isn't just some old stoner that's trying to do a podcast, trying to be cool. No, I'm trying to share a lifelong experience with a plant that has miraculous value. Everything from the industrial side, clean through the medical side. And it's been a battle, an uphill fight. The stigma involved in it is ridiculous. The powers at hand and the financial people that were profiting the most did a wonderful job of queering the existence of cannabis forever. And anyway, I hope in some way I can write that. Now, the pursuit of such has not been easy. Right now, as we speak, my Jeep outside is costing me $680 a month to have insurance on it. It went up from $135 a month because I'm showing a DUI conviction on my record. Now, can you show the documentation, both the counts that I was charged with, and also show the that I was found not guilty of impairment? That's very crucial in the wording of this new law that's just been put on the books or signed into law in February. Like I said, I have had field sobriety tests on numerous occasions by officers that were objective and fair. The only problem is the most recent of the last two stops I've had, which it appears to be a little erroneous that they happen just one after another. It almost feels like I'm being watched. But yeah, I'm driving in protest. At least I was. I've surrendered. I got a registered letter yesterday. They'll still show a screenshot of it. But the bottom line is it's stating that this violation, or me driving under the suspension of a DUI-related case. Crucial wording, DUI-related. If I was under suspension for a traffic violation, if I got caught for another or driving under suspension, it would just add time to my suspension. When it's DUI-related, you're talking jail time. And I think the two stops that I've had in the last 3 weeks add up to months, possibly 6 months of total jail time. Number one, taking my driver's license off me was punishing me for a crime that I was not guilty of. We'll get to that in a moment. Matter of fact, Chris, before I dwell more on this, let's talk about the new legislation.
Okay, Larry, we're going to talk about House Bill HB 983. Okay, now let's give a little background here, a little perspective on specifically what this is for. This law addresses protection for those that have medical marijuana cards from DUIs, which is exactly what happened to you from last year. So specifically here, the cases will, there are more than 700,000 people who have medical marijuana cards in Pennsylvania. Not a single one of them can lawfully drive. Even with a trace amount of marijuana metabolite is detectable in the body, including weeks after medical marijuana use, when the person is absolutely not impaired, the person would currently commit a DUI under the current Pennsylvania statute. What HB 983 does is it does two major changes to the current law. One, it clarifies that medical marijuana is not a controlled substance. Two, it specifically clarifies that the strict liability provision in Statute 75 does not apply to medical marijuana. So what this does is it makes medical marijuana, it treats medical marijuana the same as every other prescribed medication and protects you from a DUI from marijuana, from having that in your system. This law was brought to the floor been passed in December of 2023, and Governor Shapiro signed it into law in February 7th of this year. So the bill,
during the same period that I was fighting in Superior Court, trying to get my
yes.
Now I'm going to interject a minute. All these charges that are applied to you, and the charges that are given at the time of your arrest, are all based upon DUI, driving under the influence of. Let me get my little phone prompter up here. The charge that I was charged with, the impairment charge, is DUI, controlled substance, impaired ability, first offense. On or about 2/9/2023, Larry Nagel did unlawfully drive, operate, or in actual physical control of the movement of a vehicle while the defendant was under the influence of a drug or combinations of drug to a degree which impaired the defendant's ability to safely drive, operate, or to be in actual physical control of the movement of the vehicle. Now, that's a DUI count, driving under the influence. The next count of the two counts that I was charged with are metabolite and witnesses of the substance in your blood, Schedule 1 controlled substance. Now, the new law specifically states that as far as medical marijuana is concerned, the state is not going to look at it as a controlled Schedule 1 controlled substance. So I want to make that very clear. To the point that I was found not guilty, and again, we're going to have these papers redundantly up on the screen, but I was found not guilty of count 1. I was found not guilty of impairment. Now, how do you find somebody guilty of driving under the influence of a specific drug when they're not under the influence of the drug because they're absolutely unimpaired? I mean, tell me this isn't like a catch-22 from hell.
That's exactly it. That's a giant catch-22. And if this law had been in effect when you were stopped, which coincidentally happened almost a year exactly to the day, you were stopped February 9th of 2023. The bill was signed into law February 9th of this year. So this would have protected you by the statute. So what's been happening?
But the district attorney didn't call and say, hey, by the way, there's a law that just came in, or was just signed into law that might cut you a break.
No.
It might let you have your life back. Now, let me interject. Right now, my Jeep Wrangler Rubicon is costing me $680 a month to put insurance on it. Right now, if I dare get in my Jeep Rubicon and drive it, I'm looking at going to a prison immediately, being stopped, apprehended, and taken to the county jail. Okay? For a repeatedly driving under suspension, DUI-related impaired charge. But I wasn't impaired. Okay? This is how ridiculous this is. I mean, here's the two citations. Both of these citations, we'll post both of these, but both of them shows that I wasn't impaired. And I mean, folks, these are like at 1:30, 1:45 in the morning. and everybody else is shit-faced drunk and slobbering all over the road.
Let's go back here. Let's go back and give some context.
By the way, I don't drive impaired with alcohol or with drugs. If I feel that I'm impaired and unfit to drive, I do not get behind the wheel. Just to make that clear.
Let's go back and give some context here, Larry, to HB 983 here. So what happened before this law, before this bill was signed into law, again, February of this year. So prior to that, what happened was there were situations where people have faced DUI charges after being stopped by police, identifying as medical cannabis patients, and then being required to submit to a drug test that showed the presence of inactive THC metabolites in their system, which can stay with you for days or weeks after using marijuana.
In my scenario, it can literally stay with you for months and months.
So this law will protect future stops for other people. And in your case specifically, it's just the timing of it was a year to the day.
In my case specifically, it's costing me $700 roughly a month to insure my Jeep, which I have a $600 a month payment on, which I can no longer drive to work, and which means how do I earn the income to make my payments? Now, the other day, in an attempt to comply with the law and not drive myself, was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday I paid a driver. Okay, he charged me $45 on the way up and $40 on the way back. Excuse my language. It was a little frustrating, especially when you're talking about a day that you only net out about 2 1/4. That was a 12-hour day. So, with the increases in insurances, with the general increase in cost and the price of the driver to transport me back and forth to work, I am put in a go broke scenario. I don't even think I can cover my additional costs. And this is all over the I don't even want to go there with this trooper that did what he did. Because the saddest part of the was it was rather evident, and why I make the point about how improper I feel his procedure was and the way he went about the field sobriety test. I mean, again, I can offer all the court transcripts, video, everything to support that it was a rainy day, a stormy day, with high winds, on very uneven ground and a very loose composition of ground. And even at that, I passed the field sobriety test. Now, I think his exact wording explaining the day, give me 1 minute. Okay, quoting the officer, this is Trooper Ellis. This is his testimony under oath in Center County Court in front of Judge Grind. Now, you can check with the Weather Service for February 9th, Center Hall, Pennsylvania, Pleasant Gap, Pennsylvania, and you can get the true perspective on this. You can also take and measure the grade on the mountain we're talking about, and it's about 11 to 12% grade at the point where he did the field sobriety test on loose, broken gravel, wet, soaked, in high winds. He describes it as, where did you conduct the field sobriety test question? Answer, on the site there between the front of my patrol vehicle and the rear of his. Question, what was the surface condition like in that area? Answer, Trooper Ellis answers, it was a dry, relatively level condition. It's one of the steepest grades in Center County. Question, was there a significant grade there? Answer, no. Now, we weren't talking at the top or the crest of the mountain. We were talking in front of Byerly's garage and junkyard, scrapyard. Next question. What was the weather like that day? Answer. Clear, daylight, dry. Did you explain the type of exercise you wanted the defendant to do and perform? I did. Now, when you look at the camera footage from the car, as you're looking down 144, Route 144, towards Pleasant Gap, all you can see is giant water puddles in the parking lot of the church where he was parked. I mean, like 10, 12-foot water puddles from the heavy rains that had just ceased right to me coming up over the mountain. And it goes on and on and on. I mean, things like he told me to take 10 steps one direction, heel to toe, turn around, 10 steps back, to be arrogant the second time. And it was, I guess, out of arrogance and pride. I did 13 one direction and turned around and did 13 back. And he goes, well, you flunked. I said, what? He said, I told you to do 10. You realize this trooper's ruining another man's life. I mean, I take hats off to Pennsylvania State Police like none other. And the township police that I've encountered over this very issue, the other state troopers, with the exception of one. One told me I was just a functional drunk. Yeah, this was the second stop the other night when I said that Judge Grind had found me unimpaired. He said, well, that just means you're a functional drunk. I said, really? Does alcohol have anything to do with medical marijuana? Or is your understanding and education and background on such that poor that you would draw that conclusion?
Well, I do want to talk about there's a balance between the HB 983. Okay, 983 strikes a rational balance between holding impaired drivers accountable and permitting nearly 750,000 Pennsylvanians, many of whom are prescribed medical marijuana for disability, the right to drive. That's what this comes down to. This law would have protected you and prevented all of this from happening.
You mean it would have actually made medical cannabis legal?
It would have been a big change to what you're going through now.
I know this, Chris. I know that I feel that I'm so far away and so far detached from this being an accepted medical means of curing and maintaining my illnesses that we really haven't gained a thing. Matter of fact, this type of annex and this type of nonsense is what will cause a person to go back to the black market. It's not like, and that's one of the reasons they're having trouble in California and a lot of these other big states that had big networks prior to. And by the way, folks, I'll show you close up at this too. There's my medical marijuana card. I think going back as far as Florida, with the very first legalization of medical, I think it's been 6 years I've been a medical marijuana holder. For 6 years, I've paid the price to smoke something that I know how to grow at pennies on the dollar, just to comply with the law, just so I can be a fundamental part of the true legalization of not just recreational, but total decriminalization. There shouldn't be no schedule. Scheduling this to a Schedule 3 controlled substance from Schedule 1 is absolute nonsense. It's more smoke and mirrors. It's more confusion. It's dressing the doll up today in a different outfit than you did yesterday, but it's the same doll.
You mentioned before about people trying to control what you call a God-given plan.
Yes, sir.
So You say there's
by its very nature,
yes.
being it doesn't need a lot of processing. It is extremely hard to tax and to establish a accurate tax base on. Good example. You can grow 1,000 pound and mark down you grew 200. Unless you're going to have police going, or agricultural police going from farm to farm to farm, you're not going to be able to substantiate anything. So the reality of it is that, yeah, you're going to wind up with, it's going to be a little bit chaotic.
Let's talk about this. There's a big issue here with the police. You talked about police and training and the troopers.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Glad you hit on that. Right now, it appears that the law enforcement can be split into three categories. The informed, the well-educated, the ones that are serious about their work and make sure what they're doing so they do not destroy the quality of some other human being's life. Because unlike a lot of employment and a lot of scenarios that people work under, police have control of the future well-being of a human being based upon their findings. And if they misinterpret, mislead, or are ignorant to, it's very threatening to our society. This is why you get the hate campaigns against the cops. Now, I talked about three different kinds of cops, of course. And I'll say his name, Sebastiano, the guy that was the first one to stop me under suspension. Terrific. He was very inquisitive, asked me questions specific. I didn't even know at the time because I was not totally abreast of the latest legislation. And he asked me questions that were specific to that legislation that might make a determination in how he proceeded with my case. So there's a good case of informed. Uninformed. Okay. The trooper the other night that made the comment to me that I was nothing other than
a functional drunk.
A functional drunk. That the judge cut me a break when he acquitted me of impairment. All he was doing is just saying I was a functional drunk. Wonder if he's making an implication about the judge on that one. But regardless of all that, sometimes it's not good to be from small towns and know too much. The third type, and that's the type that scares the hell out of me. That's the trooper that really don't give a shit. The ones that really feel they're going to enforce this in any manner they see fit. They're going to shoot from the hip on it. They're going to make their own interpretations, and they're going to play judge, jury, and executioner. And unfortunately, that's what I ran into with the one. There was no talking to the man. Believe me, I tried. Camera footage will show that my mouth was running continually. I kept trying to explain to him about dosage levels, the way you had to dose at a certain maintenance level to control pain. See, what a lot of people don't understand about cannabis is if you do not use any cannabis at all, you have, and let's say you have a great deal or surge of nerve pain, intense pain. Often, depending on the strain that you use, when you first dose yourself, you may intensify the effects, make the spasms worse, makes the pain more intense. But as you bring the static level to a controlled state in your body, till you adjust the right combination of cannabinoids with the right combination of terpenes, which is the other medicine. I mean, we talk about cannabinoids all the time. We beat THC to death. THC we're too high on to begin with. We need to worry about CBG, CBD, all these other wonderful fucking fats, all these other wonderful facets of this plant that we do not pay close enough attention to, nor do enough clinical research on. I mentioned a week ago in last podcast, with the ridiculous amount of sums of money that is being taken in by these commercial growers, why is there only like a straw in a barn worth of research that the money from the clinic, or that money from the proceeds, is being used for clinical research, and we're trying to establish what terpenes do what. We're trying to establish what combination and ratio of cannabinoids do what. What is the true medical value? What is the best way to dose this product? Some people do much better dosing orally, especially if it's for pain, than they do if they smoke. Smoking is probably the worst way of ingesting. Now, ironic enough, and I'll throw a little humor into this. One day I was asked if I ever tried cannabis. I was talking about real bad, severe lower back pain. As you know, I get stenosis real bad. And I said, the person asked me if I had ever tried cannabis, THC, suppositories. And of course, you know me. I said, I've ingested weed in almost every way you possibly could and enjoyed every last one of it. But I don't think that would be my favorite, nor would I be interested in experimenting.
Well, okay, Larry, there's a lot of different points here. So you talked about you were trying to talk to the officer that pulled you over the first time here, and he just would not hear anything other than what he already knew.
Are you talking about the one that actually gave me the DUI?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So he knew best. This trooper, according to you, he knew best. He knew more than you. The education level for where you're
for
at,
a 25-year-old man,
for where you are,
that never even served in the freaking military,
where he was too. there is a mistrust with law enforcement
sure.
for many things, and now this is another issue too. Where did they go wrong with this? Is it an issue of them not knowing the law? Is it an issue of them knowing the law but not caring? Is it an issue of them knowing and just trying to insert their own mindset and their own thoughts on everything?
There's people that still have a great deal of prejudice against this plant, and they're going to take a shot when they get it. Basically, they know that they can manipulate wording. They know they can manipulate the law, and they're in a position to do so. And they take advantage of that. It's not right. Hell, there's a lot of things that aren't right, Chris. You know that.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you look at this plant historically, and I don't want to go clean past the podcast today and not spend any time on industrial. So, I mean, right now you have all these minor laws that are really causing a lot of problems and a lot of discontent. This thing that's been going on with me, I mean, was it you last night that said to me that if I didn't have the spine and the tenacity that I did, yeah, there's people that's gone postal over this. Okay, I respect the law. I respect God. I respect other people. I also respect this plant because God gave it to us. And
Now, I want to get back to this because it is kind of an issue here. That's the basis of this discussion is the law, the enforcement of laws, and police are not required to know the laws of which to which they are arresting you for.
no, you spoke to this last night in the chat.
They're not required to understand the law. Their job is to enforce the law and how they interpret it. But they're not required to know the current statutes and laws. If they pull over a lawyer and the lawyer begins to educate them on the laws, how are they going to feel? There's an ego. There's an ego here with this thing.
Oh, I tell you what, the very first officer, even the last one that told me I was a functioning alcoholic, had a big ego issue. I mean, I could have very easily. I was in a sensitive scenario. I mean, they were giving me a citation for driving under suspension. I was a block away from home. It was July 3rd. I was dying to have celebration on July 4th and enjoy it with my family. So I had lots of motive not to open my mouth. But he baited me. Oh, he wanted me so badly to say, you know who I am? You're just a kid. And you're spouting off to me that I'm a functional alcoholic? Let me explain to you about a life of alcoholism, a life of cocaine, a life of opiates, okay? A life that started with my first broken back at fucking 19 years old. Sorry I get a little emotional about it. But I've been in body cast twice. I have significant nerve damage.
If there's lots and lots and lots of videos all over YouTube where police, for example, here in Pennsylvania as well, all over the country, but people will be recording the police while they're executing their job. Police sometimes don't like that, and it causes friction, it causes arrests, it causes all kinds of problems, it causes all kinds of lawsuits. Recording, for example, I'm drawing a comparison here between police not knowing certain laws. It is a First Amendment protected activity to use your phone to record somebody in public. There is no expectation of privacy in public.
Right, because you're already in public.
You cannot trespass somebody's eyes. So if you see a cop on the side of the road doing a stop, you're allowed to stop and record them as long as you do not interfere with what they're trying to do. That's an issue of police not knowing the law. And you think to yourself, how could they possibly not know that it's a First Amendment protected right? A camera is not a weapon. A camera is a camera. It's recording what you're doing. But
it shows the truth.
There's a disconnect. There's a major disconnect between law enforcement and people's rights. It's been around for years and years and years, but specifically geared towards something like a First Amendment auditor going around recording people and police not understanding what they're doing. And now with HB 983 going into effect, it has to change. It has to be a functional change for people like you, because they're, again, going back to the time frame on this too. It happened a year to the day that you got stopped.
And so people, really get the crux of this. I was on opiates for over 20 years, pretty much nonstop. It's how I managed my nerve pain, the nature of the addiction, the nature of the beast, is it convinces you that you have to have a maintenance dose. Well, it's as close to hell as I could get real specific, but there's no need for it. You can figure that I want to talk in person sometime. I'll give you my phone. Now, the reason I'm the age I am, you can still drop and do on any given day 50 to 100 push-ups nonstop. The reason I no longer have cancer in my body, the reason that I'm as youthful as I am, both mentally and physically, all surrounds cannabis. It's basically been the secret and the salvation of my life, the quality. I don't know any other way to put it. I mean, you want a testimonial that just God honest truth, folks? That's it.
So Larry, I want to get back. I just want to clarify some things, some specifics here regarding the new law, the HB 983, which we've been talking about here at length. Okay, so one thing to keep in mind here is, let me back to my notes here, clarification on controlled substances. What HB 983 clarifies is that medical marijuana should not be considered a controlled substance for DUI purposes.
Okay, now I want you to please at this point flash the actual my verdicts, because it'll show that what I've been convicted of is Schedule 1 controlled substance in my blood. It's the only thing I was convicted of. It's what I'm being punished for that should be totally exempt under this new law.
Yes. So this change means that the mere presence of THC metabolites in a medical marijuana patient's system is no longer grounds for DUI charge.
Right.
So
right.
This law is it's like they took your case and wrote a law around it.
Okay, and the reason it appears that way, Chris, is because I'm an honest to God user of cannabis for medical purposes. Now, don't get me wrong. When it's like, and when I say medical purposes, 10, 11 o'clock at night when I'm ready to go to bed and my head's spinning and my mind won't relax, and I smoke a really dank indica that takes me off to Neverland and lets me dream away for the 8 hours I have to sleep, that's a wonderful thing. I also consider that medical, okay, even though it is a state of being high. But I use cannabis to control nerve pain. For those that do not or never have experienced nerve pain, it's not throbbing. It's not like any other pain I ever had to live through. It comes from direct impingement on nerve endings. It's almost debilitating at times. And cannabis is the only thing I have found that I can successfully manage that problem without being totally doped out of my mind. You know, I can take Oxycontin and I can manage my nerve pain. And I can also be pushed around in a wheelchair because I'm non-functional. You know, I still get to enjoy and have the quality of life that a lot of young men have. And that would not be the case if it wasn't for cannabis. And I can say that with complete conviction. And that, again, here, we're still talking on, I know this was very important to get some clarity, also to make some awareness and educate on the new law and the new legislation, since it is so pertinent. Since, Chris, I'm gonna have to plead for relief from what's happened to me, because there's no way in the world with my income. I told you I paid like $85 yesterday so I could go to work and make $225 and work 12 hours. I'm 69 years old, dude. Okay, I'm an incredible 69-year-old. Okay, know all that. But the bottom line is, I'm still a human being. I still have limitations. And if it wasn't for great ambition and pride, I think I'd have gave up a long time ago. And we're seeing a lot of that in our society. That's a whole different podcast. But I mean, what we're seeing is a lot of people. I mean, right now, I knew two big sawmill operations that have existed for over 60 years. Major sawmill operations, some of the largest in the country, shutting down. You know why? They can't get enough workers that can perform the duties of the job, that will do the chore that is required of them for the amount they're being paid. I mean, the Amish are having a blast. They're out there charging $35, $45, $55, $65 an hour for labor because they'll work. Okay, I'll let that one go. But I mean, come on, man.
Larry, let's get back to, all right, we just talked about clarification on controlled substances. And
God bless you people. At least you got the balls to work.
And I want to say this too. I want to say that we will have links to our source material on this podcast, so everyone knows we have sources for this. We're not just saying stuff. We have actual proof of information here, which is very important.
Anything that we record or play or anything we're involved with, folks, there's not a lie in it. The purpose behind this is to let the truth be known. My purpose, I believe, is a little prophetic in that I feel it's my duty to be the one to summon the masses and let them hear the word. I don't know any other way to put it. I know I get real tired of being the poster child taking all the whoopings.
Well, the requirement of, this is important too, the requirement of proof impairment. Okay. So it's broken down in the sections here as far as what this law actually means. So clarification of controlled substances, we've already discussed that. Now we can touch on the requirement of proof of impairment. The law now requires actual impairment to charge someone with a DUI. Law enforcement must rely on standard field sobriety tests and observations to determine impairment, rather than just the presence of THC metabolites alone.
Now you realize I was found, the trooper, because he had to get a blood draw, said he thought I was impaired. Then there was a blood draw done. Then I went to trial, which lapsed over a matter of months, and was found unimpaired at the trial. And I represented myself pro se. So I smoked a big fatty, went in and represented myself. Just to make the point, not to disrespect the court, once again, but to make the point that this is how livid I am and just how clear-minded I am under the influence of certain types of cannabis. I mean, I've done a lot of experimentation to see what works and doesn't work. This isn't a game with me. I don't get my recommendations off of bud tenders at the dispensary. Okay? This is real life for me, my whole life. I've been the guy that's always tried to help others. And sometimes at my own sacrifice.
Well, let's just be clear on some things here quick, and then we have another topic here to discuss. But I want to make sure that everyone knows that we're trying to educate people here with all of this information, and it's a lot of specific information here. But we encourage everyone to take the time to read our links, see our links, make your own determination on things. But this new law is something that will protect a lot of people going forward. It's HB 983, signed into law by the governor of Pennsylvania, February 9th of 2024. And there are there's an impact on law enforcement and legal proceedings. There's implications for medical marijuana patients. There's context of broader cannabis legislation. There's a lot going on with this new law. It's only turned into effect only a few months ago, but the effects are wide ranging here too. So we're going to continue to do our research on this. I know Larry will, and so will I. But it's very interesting to see what the law. Again, the timing of it is just bizarre.
Well,
but a year to the day, you know.
Well, you know, and we've talked about this numerous occasions. One of my greatest frustrations is how long of a fight I've been in. I started arguing about the value of this plant back about 50 years ago. And it sure as heck hasn't been easy. I'm trying to spare the audience of some of my cruder humor. So let me put it this way. It's been an uphill climb. Now, one of the things I'm most enthused about, and it really disheartens me that all this nonsense over Schedule 1, Schedule 2. Oh, by the way, to make it Schedule 3, to take Schedule 1 controlled substance and to make it into a Schedule 3 controlled substance is absolute nonsense. Again, more smoke and mirrors, more lies. It will not change anything whatsoever legally. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The plan should be descheduled like it was never scheduled before. Nancy Reagan wished to have it scheduled back in the early 70s. Now, what I am excited about is I'm trying to solicit industry money, money from farmers. God love them. They've already exhausted enough capital trying to see the viable alternative and profitable crop that cannabis can be, or hemp. But we're looking towards our Cannabis Research Center of Excellence. Basically, what we're going to be trying to do is breed strains that, if you're looking for grain, will give you bigger, fatter, thicker, and more nutritious grain per plant or per acre, depending. A lot of these plants, because of the competitive nature of cannabis, you play, and soybeans are the same way. You play population per acre against yield per acre. At the point that you put too great a population that the yield starts to round over, diminish, you stop. That's your point of highest marginal productivity. Now, on the side of fiber, we can make faster growing, faster drying, more valuable fiber, more applicable to its more applicable to specific applications, simply by the way we breed the plant. Now, on the third side, the cannabinoid side, I'd like to see a movement back towards the traditional land races where the THC wasn't as high and where the minor cannabinoid values were significantly higher. Also, the terpene values were up. I believe that's where the medicine's at. I believe that this race to the finish on who can hit the highest numbers on THC, that has nothing to do with quality of the plant, nothing to do with medicine. Just like so much of the rest of this has. I mean, really has had nothing to do with medicine. Now, the net result of everything we're trying to accomplish, if I can keep, I use a traditional word, the establishment from breaking me ahead of my progress, because God only knows it's been a toil. I think I just said the type of hours I've been working, the type of work I've been doing. Praise God. Thank you, God, for everything. If it wasn't for you, I couldn't even be doing this. But I pray I can make a difference for mankind.
The struggle is real, Larry. The struggle is real.
No one knows that better than me, Chris. I mean, this shit started with me when I was 12 years old. And I had a direct comparison between a brother that would inject himself with a substance that would knock him clean off the toilet, and would find him wringing wet and sweat in his own vomit beside the toilet bowl. It's called heroin. Or he could just be obnoxious about smoking a bunch of weed and be as happy. And so at a very early age, I seen this substitution-based alternative or cure. Now, again, I mean, I'm not going to win address nothing. Ronnie was the most obnoxious guy you ever smoked with because of his habitual nature. And see, this is something else people don't understand. True addicts have extremely habitual natures. Do you remember Shanoa, She Danced by Madison? Very sweet girl, died very young of a heroin overdose. Uh, Boy, that set me back.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was living in New York when I found out. Yeah,
Why did I bring her up, Chris?
heroin. Talking about the extreme this extreme negative effects of your brother and heroin.
Oh, well, everybody that didn't ever touch this stuff died from it somewhere. And when you can use something as simple as hash oil, and anybody that wants to see my methodology for curing severe substance abuse, I'll be more than happy to be an intricate part of your research. But basically, I use hash oil to put you in a comatose state for a number of weeks, and during which time you're not taking your drug that you're addicted to. And usually nets out as you starting to come to, and it's like, well, hey man, I'm not taking my Suboxone, I'm not taking my heroin, I'm not taking my methadone. Right, you haven't taken it for weeks. You're no longer an addict. Okay, now you can wean yourself off of this hash oil. That's no problem. Matter of fact, you can easily wean yourself off of it to the point of maybe just doing a little dab a night, just enough to satisfy the urge. And that's something that it's worked for me. It's worked for a lot of friends.
So, are you saying that cannabis is a gateway drug, but it's a gateway to what?
Cannabis is the gateway out.
Yes. Yes.
There's nothing gateway in about cannabis. The gateway in is alcohol. Why do we lie to our children? Why do we lie to ourselves? Tobacco and alcohol are the gateways to all drug abuse. To say anything else other than that is just a downright lie. Why would you have to label that pitiful situation and scenario on cannabis when both of the substances that you're citing, both of them substances, can not only decrease the quality of your life permanently, the length of your life, and take your life? John Love, and God bless. Thank you for joining us today. Hopefully the information we shared in some way will be beneficial to you. If we can help in any other fashion, you have our web address. We have a phone number we publish. Feel free to get a hold of us. Have a wonderful day. Thank you. This week's episode sponsored by the Cannabis College of America. This week's episode sponsored by Buds and Brew Superstore.